Imminent world war. Boris brought down Putin's aggressive communist threats to wage war on Ukraine. Boris Johnson issued a stern warning to Russia following its attempts of hybrid warfare against the West, saying NATO and other allies would clamp down hard on the superpower if it continued to encroach on Ukraine, and it would be catastrophic. Boris Johnson appeared before MPs at Prime Minister's Questions, where he was asked by Tory backbencher Sir Bernard Jenkins what the UK was doing in its response to Russia and Vladimir Putin's aggressive posturing. Mr. Johnson explained he spoke to President Putin on Monday about the issue on the Ukraine border and the build-up of military exercises in the region, before stressing the G7 would take on Russia if it stepped out of line. The Prime Minister explained there would be an extremely tough package of sanctions and that NATO forces would build in the periphery of Ukraine if needed, before saying such a decision would be catastrophic for everyone involved. Speaking in the House of Commons, Sir Bernard was invited to ask his question to the Prime Minister and chose to put a spotlight on Russia's international actions. He told the House, "As we see Russian forces massing on the Ukrainian border, can we be reminded that Russia is also continuing cyber attacks, attempted assassinations, using gas as a political weapon, holding illegal territory in Crimea, intimidating the West and interfering in Western elections? How much does the government understand that President Putin is conducting a hybrid war against the West, and how is the government responding to it? Russia has ramped up its political exercises near Ukraine and in the Black Sea as Western governments grow fearful of Russian military invasion. In 2014, Crimea was annexed by Russia, which led to Russia being excluded from the then G8. Many world powers refused to recognize the annexed area of Crimea as part of Russia, with NATO and other forces showing their support for the country. Mr. Johnson responded to the developments and said, "I'm afraid he is absolutely right in what he says. And he is right to stress the particular urgency about hybrid warfare and all the other interventions. But there is a particular crisis we face on the border with Ukraine, where Russian troops have been amassing for some time. As the House knows, I told President Putin on Monday of what I think everybody in the G7 and more widely is agreed, that is, Russia were so rash and mad to engage in an invasion of the sovereign territory of Ukraine. Then there would be an extremely tough package of economic sanctions mounted by our allies, by the UK and friends around the world. There will inevitably be a build-up of NATO forces in the periphery regions. And as I told President Putin, I believe any such action would be catastrophic not just for Russia and Ukraine but for the world." In June this year, HMS Defender was reportedly fired at by Russian forces in a warning after it traveled through Ukrainian waters. The vessel chose to journey 12 miles off Crimea's coast, an area occupied by Russia, in what was considered by Russia to be a deliberate provocation. The move was also seen by some to be the UK signaling its support for Ukraine, who was getting extremely worried about the build-up of the Russian military near its border. Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi on Wednesday played down the risk of Russia invading Ukraine, saying Moscow's behavior indicates its desire to explore diplomacy. The US in recent weeks has been warning European allies that a Russian troop build-up along its Ukrainian border may be a prelude to an invasion, perhaps similar to Moscow's 2014 annexation of Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula. The US, EU and G7 nations have all warned Russia of severe consequences if it takes such a step. Draghi, however, argued Russian President Vladimir Putin's conduct did not indicate someone preparing for action. Instead, he said, Putin appears to want to negotiate, citing a video call the Russian leader held last week with US President Joe Biden. Moscow has denied any intention to invade, arguing it is merely responding to provocations such as the acquisition of weapons by Ukraine and military maneuvers by the US in the Black Sea. Putin has demanded guarantees that the NATO military alliance will not expand further eastward, including into Ukraine, and that weapons systems posing a threat to Russia will not be deployed close to its borders.